Hello, I'm Jeremy, and welcome to my channel. We're going over Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, which I've got right here. We are currently on chapter 2. Part 1 was the overture. Part 2 was to give a little bit of what I've done and my thoughts on it that I think was helpful before getting into it, and that was why should you bother improving your life, and that saying of focus to life comes from the fact that death limits us all. And I came to this, I was watching several people speak on the subject and kind of put it all together, and this happened after my mom passed away. I got depressed, and I felt more of an urgency to do more with life and to push myself. I felt like that was appropriate, so I talked about that a little bit in part 2. In part 3, we went over chapter 1, just kind of a synopsis, quick shot over it. Same thing with chapter 2 and with all the others. And so again, the example is Ty Lopez talks about how he goes through hundreds of books each year, and it's because he can spend an hour each day, and maybe at the end of the week he's read one pretty good lengthy book, or instead he can go over the highlights and maybe he can get 2 of those a day in that same 1 hour period. Yeah, he might only get 75% of the content, but he's done 14 books instead of 1. So same concept here. For you to really get the full emergence of it, you're going to have to read it yourself. I have a link in the description below with an audiobook version of it where there is a person who is speaking this aloud. So if you're traveling and you're in your car and you can't read, for example, that would be really good to start. So before we get into it, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It really would help so I can get out there to the rest of the YouTube world or whichever platform that this is currently being broadcasted on. And after time, I would really appreciate you to go to the Subscribe Star or Patreon that I have and donate so I can hire more people to do more content so that I can finally start building a website to help dealing with truth and false narratives. And on my channel, Freedom of Expression, we get into that a little bit more. I highly recommend you check that out. So with chapter 2, the title of it is Treat Yourself Like Someone You're Responsible for Helping. I think this would hit me more if I had children. I think that's a dead-on perfect example of it. Another one would, of course, be spouse and aging parents, as long as you have good relationships with them all. And he talks a lot about order and chaos, and he starts off talking about how people will not take their pills. But whenever it comes to their pets, for some reason, yeah, they'll make their pets take their pills, but not whenever it's them. And he gives quite a few examples of all of this. And it's like, yeah, I think that's a good way to address this whenever it comes to improving yourself. If you're having a hard time doing it, think about the benefit that it would have for others. You know, put yourself in, picture like top 3 or 5 people in your life who are the most important to you and how would you like them to better themselves. And then put yourself in that category. Be like, okay, well, if it's so good and it would help them out so well, then why shouldn't I stick myself in that? That's the biggest takeaway that I got from that, hands down, is to, if you're having a hard time, which I definitely do, it's like, well, I know me and I'm okay and I'm of sound mind, body, and whatever. It's like, but really I'm not, and neither are you. No one is. No one's ever perfect. One of the things that I have a list of values, and one of them is change. So yes, to constantly be changing. It's like, go to school, see how long it takes you to get every single degree that they have. It's not going to happen. Good luck. And then no matter what school you go to, they're not going to have all the degrees that you can possibly get. They're not going to have all the information. We have more things that we're also developing and figuring out. And he's talking a lot about chaos and order. So just imagine if you had a bunch of chaos on the streets and you could just drive however, and how dangerous that would be. And that we don't randomly yell at people in stores for help either. That would be chaotic. But we've set systems in place. So people, whenever they're working at the store, they have a uniform so that you can identify them. They'll probably have some kind of name tag. So then that way it's just not just random crap going on. This is customs, traditions, and culture that comes into play. And we don't need laws to do it. It should be what is effective and efficient. And the more that we have that in, the easier life is, because life is filled with chaos. And he goes into this a lot. He has a lot of examples of it. I'm not going to go over all this stuff, so you're going to have to listen to it or buy the book. I really recommend buying the book and then making marks in it and notes for it. And then also have something like, I've got little notebooks that I have, and I write in these things a lot. Take notes of this stuff that's going to help you the best, and you're going to have to sort it out. It takes time, because what really works for you, you may think it does at first, but then later maybe it doesn't, and then you go back. And I've read this book once before already. I didn't quite make it all the way through. I made it a little over halfway, and something gets in the way with life, and I get distracted. And so I've done this with other things. So like Thomas Sowell with his discussion about the minimum wage gap, I've gone back to some of his videos before, and the same thing with Ben Shapiro. And I see things that I missed the first go around. And it's just so much information being thrown at you. It's kind of an onslaught. So whenever we have this structure, whether if it's driving regulations that we have, because even just weaving back and forth, that's going to bring about unwanted attention, and how you go and you deal with your shopping and just greeting strangers off the street, and you say, hello, hi, how are you? I was wondering if you could help me out, or I had a question about something. Because we come up and we address people in a certain way, it's like, all right, well, they're being nice, they're doing what they're supposed to, so that's going to prompt me to be nice in return and help them out, because we all need help at some point in time. And he talks about yin and yang a little bit throughout the book, and how he talks about a masculine, feminine kind of role. And I was wondering, maybe it's not quite that, because he also talks about it as order and chaos, and that it's always kind of devouring itself. But I was thinking maybe it's more of kind of the Hydra example that he gives, where you cut off one head and several more grow. And that's kind of a metaphor for whenever you answer one question, it seems like four more pop up. So maybe that's more of the yin and yang, is that whenever we see new chaos, we have a demand to put it in order so we can handle it and deal with it, instead of wasting a whole bunch of time, which is what I'm doing with this website. It's like, yes, there's too much information. It's just chaotic and it's nonsense. Too many people are taking advantage of it, and it's just nonsense. So to deal with so much nonsense out there, so many people acting a fool, it needs to be this really hard, insane system with checks and balances, and I'll get into more of it as we go. And so I think maybe it was something along those lines, that the yin and yang and order and chaos it's not this masculine, feminine kind of perspective, because men and women, they both have problems that they see, and there are problems that they can all address, because it's not like women do nothing or men do nothing. No, they all do something. So it's like, well, who's going to step up and be able to do it properly, to really make things better? And that there's always change. So even whenever you kind of have something figured out, it's not like it's set in stone. I mean, technology, for example, is definitely going to change things, and we see this whenever we have science fiction. You know, we see all of these new visions that people have for the uses of technology and what it means for our future. So I think maybe it's a little bit more along those lines, and I'm sure if I was correct with this, he would be completely open for change on all that. But I'm not saying that I'm right either. I'm just talking aloud, I guess you could say. And so how do we apply something like this to our own personal lives? And he talks about this a lot. It's that the more chaotic your life is, the more stressful it is, the harder it is to get things done, and not facing change and being kind of a subject to fear. That he talks about that a lot, that people really can get into this mindset where they're fearful of all these things, and it has a cascading effect, that it can spread and it can get into other domains. And so whenever the people that he's kind of helped and mentored with this clinical work, that they'll conquer a fear with something, and then the next thing that happens is that they're having a fight with their spouse because something that needs to be addressed, they finally have the courage to address it because they find out that they're stronger than they actually are. And it's like, yes, I can deal with this and it's going to be okay. And so whenever you're trying to plan out your routine and your schedule, you want to do that to help minimize the chaos so that you can have as full and a productive life as you want. And you can set the terms for this yourself. What do you want? Because there are obviously some things like your morning routine. It's like, get that down packed. And he talks about this too in other places where he likes to use math. And he says, yeah, you know what? You may think it's only a few minutes that you're able to shave off. But whenever you look at it, to how much time that is in a year, and then 5 years and 10 years, I mean, there comes a point in time where you're talking about, well, you like 10 years, if you shaved off a few minutes with one thing, you know, or even 1 minute, it's like a full-time job. He uses an example that he gives pretty often is you arguing with your child whenever you're trying to put them to bed. And he does the math with it, you know, and it's like, even though it's 5 minutes, after a year, you've wasted like a month and a half of your time just with that 5 or 10 minute argument that you have with your child every single night. So get it under control. And he really stresses that it's the things that you do on a daily, regular basis, and that there are these lawyers out there where it's an extremely demanding career, and that they will buy a microwave just because it's like 45 seconds faster, because time is precious. And it is. Doesn't matter who you are. You have 24 hours in a day, no matter how rich and how powerful you are. And that's why so many people rely on others to help them out, because you just can't do it all. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I can't do this all. I'm going to need help from as many people as possible, you included. There's everyone, the more the better. So create this order in your life. Sit down. Just grab something, write with it, use your computer, it doesn't matter. And just start to sort things out. It's going to take time, and also have it open to change. It's going to change. You're not the same. You're not the same whenever you were 5 years old or 10 years old. You've changed. So don't ever say, well, I've got this figured out. I have it pegged. Like, maybe it's the best it's ever been, true, but that doesn't mean that it can't be better. And yeah, with some things, it's going to be, this isn't what I'm really wanting to focus on. I have stronger interests, and so I'm pretty good with this for right now. So yeah, and that's what I want to do. I've been working really hard with the creation of this YouTube video to put in a really good, decent schedule, because this is a lot that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get to doing 4 YouTube videos a day, and I would like to bring that up to 8, because that's what Tim Pool was doing, or I don't think he's doing that anymore. I think he's changed. And he talked about, like, one of the things that he's done recently is the IRL podcast that he has, and that's like a couple of hours, I believe, and he talks to some other folks on there. And I'm obviously not to that point, but it's a numbers game. The more I could spend like 3 hours and really do a lot of fancy little things with the videos, I could put in all of these little animations and texts and really work on the thumbnails, clean up the sound and all that stuff, but it would just be one video. Good luck. Doesn't matter how good it is if nobody knows anything about your channel. So I'm going to get better coverage if I do a whole bunch of videos instead of just one, even though they might kind of be crummy. It's the same thing with that Ty Lopez thing. If you're what's better, reading one book in a week or skimming over 14? Yeah, you might only get 75% of it, but it's still 75% of 14 books. And I would say it would be a mix. That if it's something that's really pertaining to something in your life, yeah, maybe you want to go ahead and sit down and soak in more of the book. But otherwise, with a lot of this stuff, it's just, no, just get through it the best that you can, take the highlights from it, and move on to something else, and you're going to develop yourself a lot better. So, and then he also goes in to talk about how trust is a thing that really brings in order, and whenever you have a break of that trust, there's chaos. And people seem to have a hard time kind of really understanding what this is and what it means and where the lines are drawn. So if I'm in a relationship with someone and it's none of your business, right? Doesn't matter who it is. If I get involved with your significant other, it's still none of your business that I'm involved with them. But it is a matter whenever that person, if that happens to be your significant other, what I'm doing is none of your business, but what they're doing is. Because if it's not any better if they were to cheat around with like one of your parents or a sibling or a best friend or a coworker or a stranger off the street, they're the connection, not me, and or whoever. It's because there's a break in that trust that they've built up with you. It's why I've been cheated on a couple of times. I had never got upset with that other person. It was always the person that I had the relationship with. Every single time. I mean, what am I going to do? Go out there and just hold her hand and babysit her with every single encounter that she's engaged with? That there aren't going to be guys who are going to be interested in her? Of course they are. And I can't do that. I cannot monitor any girl 24/7. I just have to have trust in her. And it's the same thing with these systems. It's like, yeah, we have a trust in the driving protocols that we have so that way people don't get hurt and killed off of this stuff. We have an order system. You should have an order system with your life. Really developing a routine, a schedule, so then that way life is just less tenseful. It's not as intense as it needs to be. That you get to have a moment where, yeah, you know what, I know what to do. I'm good with all this. Why make it any more stressful than it is? And so, yeah, but with change. I'm only going with the audiobook to 2.4. I'm going to do the rest 2.8 in the next part. And it's because there's just so much that's going on with all of this that I've taken up quite a bit of time right now. I don't want to overdo it just yet. I did want to talk about that whenever you have order. It seems it doesn't matter what you're doing whenever you've organized things and you have some order to it. It makes me feel better. I can't say for you, but it sure does for me. I really like it whenever I clean up my house and I have it organized. If you have not done that, do it. I just cannot recommend that enough. I have it where there are some things that I do every single day. And it's things like taking care of the dishes, the dirty laundry, and the trash. It's really simple little things. So some of the things that I do is that I'm wearing the same shirt for this because whenever I record a video, I slap this on and then I throw it over to the side. I do the same thing with my plate. I only have one plate that I use. It's just me that's here. I know that's my plate. Why use a whole bunch? Why use the dishwasher? Just use the one plate. I use it whenever I eat, and then I put it aside, and then I use it again whenever I eat. Same thing with the shirt. And then at the end of the week, I do my laundry. I take out the trash. I wash any dishes that I might have, which is just the one plate, wipe it down a little bit, and a pot or pan or whatever it is that I'm using. And having that order makes it really nice to be able to have things under control. And then also on the weekend, it's whenever I'll take care of the yard and mow it. Every other weekend, I'll deal with the kitchen or the bathroom. And then twice a year, I will do a spring and fall cleaning where I go through and I just clean everything up. I put things where they belong. So I have like one of those plastic storage bins where I kind of have arts and crafts, pens, pencils, paper, stuff like that. I have another one that has all my electrical stuff. So cables, HDMI, I still got some of those AV jacks, audio video jacks, telephone wire, whatever, stuff for the computer, mice, whatever. I've got enough to fill up a little plastic bin of that stuff. And I've got quite a few of those things. I have maybe half a closet's full of those things. And I've gotten rid of quite a few things too. Like with my art decor, I've gotten rid of a lot of things because how many things look nice? Like a lot. I can look at things online. It's like, oh, that looks cool. That looks cool. That looks cool. It's like, I can't buy it all. I don't want it all. Why would I want to have a house full of clutter? I do not want to become a hoarder at all. And so now I've bought things that they have some kind of meaning to them. So instead of just looking good, there's a message behind there, and it's a message that I want to be reminded of. And so this right here, it's up in a chapel somewhere in Europe. The name is Latin, I believe, but there's a priest who's died here, and then right here there's a kind of a shoulder pad right there. There's a warrior, and then the rest of it is just filled with all these little trinkets, and they look nice. And it's just, as you leave and enter the church, it was to be a reminder that your worldly possessions do not go with you. I like that a lot. I do not care to be materialistic at all. I like the minimalist things. I like things that are tools that I can use, or they have something associated with meaning. And so this is, I was a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout. I was a part of I-4. We went into Yugoslavia. We were the first ones there with my unit that I was in. And then Superman over there, I mean, yeah, Superman. And so it's also with this, I've talked about this before, so it was advertised as a bangle, and it's just it's a bracelet, and it had skulls on it. Whenever my mom died, it really brought my mortality first and foremost into my life, and I did not want to miss opportunities, which by the time this had happened, it was like, yes, I had missed opportunities because I was too shy or unsure or whatever. And if I could go back, I would have done things differently. I would have said, yeah, why not? You only live once. Don't live a life of fear. It's not to say to be stupid. So I've been looking into what it is that I want to have for my values. And so for courage, for example, I like Aristotle's golden mean, which is if you take any virtue to an extreme, it becomes a vice. So an example of this is that if you don't have any courage, then you're a coward. So if you see someone who's getting robbed and you do nothing, if you see someone who's getting robbed and you go and you intervene, then that's courage. But the other end of that extreme is that if you go and intervene and they're like twice your size or they have a gun, then that's recklessness. So, still you could be courageous. So, for example, today is that you could get on your phone, you could call the police, you could start recording a video, you could get the attention of other people to help. And so it's the same thing with this. This is not to say to be reckless, but just to be not fearful either, to be courageous and to go ahead and to accept life, and that sometimes you're just going to have to put yourself out there. And that's what I want to fill my life up with. So that whenever I see this is just a quick little shot of just other than, well, it's pretty, it's got skulls in it, and guys like skulls. No. There's more to it than that. Same thing with all of this behind there. So what about you? Have you done anything like that? And why not? You can. You want to add meaning to your life? Here's some things that you can do with the things that you adore yourself with the things that you have up on the wall that you decorate your belong. This is one of the things that I'll get into it later, but your image and your environment, Peterson talks about this, is clean up your room. And he means that both literally and metaphorically, and also that your image matters. And so, yeah, clean up your room, and then the rest of your home, and organize things. I really like it that my place is organized, because then I know where things are. So whenever I'm ready to use them, I don't have to scour around trying to figure out where I left it last. It's like, no, I know it's here. I know this is over there, and I can get to it. And that makes it so that my life is more effective and efficient, other than just living in chaos like some kind of lunatic. So we're going to pause here, and I will do the other 4 parts of this because I stopped at 2.4. It goes to 2.8. And so we'll catch you next time.